Welcome to the January 8, 2013 meeting of the Westchester Board of Trustees, and a special welcome to Cub Den 6, Pack 941, Tiger Cubs. As fiscal officer, I am convening the meeting because this is the annual organizational meeting of the board. In a moment, I'll oversee the nomination and election of the board president and vice president for 2013. But first, I'd like for the record to reflect that all three trustees are present. Mrs. Stoker, Mr. Wong, and Mr. Lang. Now, I open the floor for nomination, President of the Westchester Board of Trustees for 2013. Do we have a nomination?
I'd like to place a nomination, Mr. Lee Wong.
Mrs. Stoker has nominated Mr. Wong for Board President. Do we have another nomination?
I nominate Mrs. Stoker for Vice President. One at a time.
One at a time. Hearing no other nominations for President, nominations are closed. Now roll call on the nomination of Mr. Wong for Board President for the year 2013. Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Now I open the floor for nomination for Vice President of the Westchester Board of Trustees for 2013. Do we have a nomination?
I nominate Mrs. Stoker.
Mr. Wong has nominated Mrs. Stoker for Board Vice President. Do we have another nomination? Hearing none. Nominations are closed. Now roll call on the nomination of Mrs. Stoker for Board Vice President for the year 2013. Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present President Lee Wong and Vice President Catherine Stoker.
No citizens' comments. Nobody signed up.
I now convene the January 8, 2013 regularly scheduled meeting of Westchester Board of Trustees. Mr. Jones, roll call, please.
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Here.
Mr. Lang?
Here.
Please stand.
We have the pen.
Oh,
We have this.
Tonight we have a privilege to have the Tiger Cub Scout, Den 6 from Pack 941, to come forward to give us a pledge of allegiance. Please arise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank
Will
you.
you introduce
All our scouts to us? And you might want to have them face that way.
Okay, everybody stand here. And go ahead and tell everybody your name.
Brayden.
Stand here in a straight line and tell everybody your name.
Caleb.
Okay.
Caden.
Turn and look back.
Liam. Lucas. Carter. Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you make sure they get it? Yeah, let it go. Let it go.
We got president in there.
Thank you.
All right. Item A, proclamation. Mrs. Boyko?
You may want to announce that there are no citizens' comments
citizens'
in the
comments
first
tonight.
section.
Correct.
I'd like to invite Mrs. Gail Webster to the podium, please. I feel like I start each presentation of this proclamation each year at this time with, I cannot believe this is the 14th year. Last year was, I cannot believe it was the 13th year. It's just amazing the effort that you have instituted and achieved in this wonderful community event. So Gail, instead of me talking, I'd like to just turn the podium over to you, but on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the Fiscal Officer, I'd like to present to you this proclamation that commemorates and celebrates and appreciates all of the effort that you make for this wonderful community event.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for once again giving us the privilege to have a Martin Luther King Day observance in Westchester. We do this in conjunction with Liberty Township, and we're just really pleased to say that this year we're really excited about what we're going to have. Again, we're going to have the March for Unity in our community that'll start at noon at the Union Day School on Cincinnati Dayton Road on Martin Luther King Day, January 21st. And it will go south to Westchester Presbyterian Church, and all the marchers get a free lunch donated by local restaurants. So we'd love it if you can come to that. Our evening program is going to be 7 p.m. at Cornerstone United Methodist Church. And this year, we have three main things going on. The first one is a community choir that will be singing. Another one will be the contest that we've run through the Lakota local schools, and for any Lakota resident in 2nd through 12th grade who lives within Lakota. This year, one of our winners does not attend Lakota schools, but he lives within the school district. The contest was based on the I Have a Dream speech, because this marks the 50th year of Martin Luther King giving that speech. So we coordinated the contest with that, and part of our evening program will be listening to the whole speech on video. And our keynote speaker this year is a 95-year-old resident of Westchester. His life began in Georgia, but he's lived in this area for many years. And he's going to share just his recollections and his life history, being an African-American who started his life in Georgia and migrated north. He has a wonderful history. Well, he has all kinds of history to tell. And I think it's wonderful that our community has the opportunity to sit there and just hear what he's gleaned over his 95 years. So we'd like to invite all of you and the whole community to come to that as well. We're very excited, and we hope to see you there. And we do thank you so very much for, again, opening this up for the whole community and allowing the opportunity to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you very much, Gail.
Mrs. Boyko, action items?
Actually, item B I will address, and then I believe the fiscal officer will address item C. But just regarding your motion to set your dates for your 2013 trustee meetings, just wanted to alert the board that in keeping with tradition and previous scheduling that has worked best toward the end of the year, we are proposing that there be, again, one meeting in November, and which would be the second Tuesday of the month, no fourth Tuesday of the month meeting, and then moving your December meetings to the first and third of the month of December, because with the second and fourth, the fourth would be Christmas Eve. So if that works for you all, this is what staff is proposing as your actual meeting dates.
Okay, that works for everybody.
That's fine with me.
George?
Pardon?
That works for you?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. All right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that we hold our meetings as described by Ms. Boyko for 2013 being the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, with differences, with the exceptions being November and December to accommodate for the holidays.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Item C.
We have an application from HPA Development Group to extend the lighting district in the Grace Meadow subdivision, which runs on the north side of Tylersville Road between to the west of Swarsville Westchester, and approximately a quarter mile from Swarsville Westchester. And this is really an extension of 11th Hour Lane, and they provide all the appropriate documentation. And in as much as the expense of the installation and continuing operation of the lights will be applied as an assessment against property taxes. This is a matter before the board, and the developer has accommodated all statutory requirements, and thus we ask that this be approved.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for item C.
I'll make a motion we approve the addition to the lighting district in the Grace Meadow subdivision, Phase 2A, as illustrated in the plan documentation provided to us and is described by Fiscal Officer Jones.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Boyko, item D.
Items D, E, and F are for the board's discretion.
Do you want to entertain a
I
motion?
will entertain the motion for item D.
I'll make that motion to approve our TIF work session minutes from December 4th.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
I will entertain a motion for item E.
I'll move that we approve trustee meeting minutes for December 4th.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I would request that we put this on hold till our next meeting. Ms. Stoker made some modifications to the meetings after they were first submitted by Bruce Jones about a week ago. I didn't get Kathy's modifications until yesterday. I did have time to look at them, but I haven't had time to thoroughly review them. And I'm not liking what I see in terms of what she credited to things I said. I would just like to have time to review it. I didn't get this until yesterday.
Sure. Mr. Jones has also made some additional corrections to those. I think I sent those out Sunday.
Perfect. So if we can just table that for 2 weeks.
All right. We'll table that for 2 weeks.
Or until our next meeting.
Next meeting,
But,
which is-
yeah, that's 2 weeks.
Do we need a motion for that?
I
vote on
don't
it?
think we need to move to
Okay.
table.
We'll just move on.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to, I'll make a motion to approve trustee meetings. No. Motion to approve payment of bills, item F.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Boyko, requisition greater than $2,500.
Fire Department is requesting approval to reimburse Township Employee Assistant Chief Rick Prince in the amount of $3,081.50 to reimburse tuition toward an associate's degree per the Township's policy.
I'll entertain a motion for item 1.
Also moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
We have no personnel item. Mrs. Boyko, business item 2.
In order to continue the operations of many of our volunteer services, committees, boards, and groups, requesting the board's consideration to continue the Township volunteer services, committees, and boards as the groups and members of those groups were attached to your business item.
Okay. I will entertain a motion for item 2.
I'll make the motion that we continue our Township volunteer services, committees, and boards.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong,
Yes.
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mrs. Lang, Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Mrs. Boyko, item 3.
Fire Chief is requesting the board's consideration to apply to the Department of Homeland Security's FEMA Fire Prevention and Safety Grant for fiscal year 2012. The deadline is prior to your next meeting, which would be January 15th, and so we are requesting it at this time. and then also requesting that if awarded, the board authorize the township administrator to accept the grant. The grant is an 80% federal match and 20% local match, and Westchester's share would be approximately $3,800, and the fire chief is requesting the consideration so that they could utilize and enhance some of their fire prevention for seniors and elderly residents and also children by installing a smart stove, smart prop in the fire safety house, which is that mobile vehicle that they can transport to senior citizens' places or schools, and that's what they utilize for a lot of the fire prevention education and tactics. So requesting the board's consideration to allow the Township Fire Department to apply for this grant, and if awarded, authorize the administrator to accept the grant.
I will entertain a motion for item 3.
I'll make the motion then that we apply for the Department of Homeland Security's FEMA Fire Prevention and Safety Grant for fiscal year 2012.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
And that is per Mrs. Boyko's description, where if we're awarded it, we authorize the township administrator to accept the grant.
Yes. Roll call?
Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Mrs. Stover?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Okay, we have no reading of resolution. Citizens' comment. Okay, please state your name and address.
I'm Mark Morris, and I live at 8876 Eagleview Drive. The reason for my coming to the meeting tonight is I read an article in the local Cincinnati Enquirer dated December the 27th. And all I can say is when I read the article, I was totally outraged, just outraged, that we are spending money on an issue that, quite frankly, should have been never taken up over this liberty tax thing and a guy in a costume that's trying to promote his business. It seems to me like the township chose to single this man out, according to this article, because he's trying to promote his business. I see several businesses in Westchester that do the same thing. Cincinnati Dayton Road, the Valvoline puts up one of those machines that blows a balloon up in the air and does things. The Goodyear over on 747 does the same thing. Little Caesars waves a sign at 5 o'clock saying, "Hot pizzas, come and get one." It goes on all over the township. And to have a man like this that we take on a battle because he's standing in a costume 3 months of the year promoting his tax business seems just completely ridiculous to me. And it also seems really ridiculous that we've spent this kind of money defending a case that, in my opinion, we shouldn't have even taken on. And there's quotes in the paper that, trustees made comments that really troubles me, that spending tens of thousands of dollars of township money, taxpayer money, was money well spent. And another township trustee that makes a comment that says, if we don't do something about this, that Westchester is going to turn into a shanty town. And I guess the biggest thing that outrages me is the fact that the Enquirer puts a African-American man in the article, and it makes it sound like Westchester is a bunch of racist bigots because we're singling out a black man, of all things, not anyone else. So, in my opinion, what is the responsibility of the zoning board? I mean, where did we come to this conclusion that they chose this man to give a citation to for wearing a costume and promoting his business, but they're not doing it to any of the other businesses? I mean, is it a case of somebody happens to drive by this man on their way to work and they just don't like it, so they decide to cite him? Again, it just seems like that the zoning department kind of makes decisions based upon their personal feelings rather than following the township code. And when I read the signage code, it really doesn't state that you can't wear a costume. You can't hold up a sign. You can't wave, on the corner. So, in my opinion, the common sense thing would have been to have done was give this man his variance, then change the code for the future so that it doesn't happen again. Because, I've got information that this case, even though the paper quotes it as being $60,000, I've received information that the township has topped near $100,000 with this case. And by the time it's all said and done, if you lose the case, it could be even more. Just to fight a case because a man's trying to promote his business 3 months of the year. To me, in this economic time, it should be the township's responsibility to bring business into the township, not to discourage it. And this, to me, not only discourages this man, but may discourage future businesses because they're afraid they're going to be singled out because they may wave a sign or do some kind of human advertisement. And that's really all I have to say. I was just totally outraged at reading an article like this because I know that the majority of Westchester doesn't believe like this. But it sure gives the perception that we are against a black person having a business in the township, the way this article reads. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Good. Is there anyone else? Good. Mrs. Boyko, discussion items and trustee comments. Okay. Mr. Lane?
Yeah, yesterday, Alabama, Notre Dame, great football game. Whether you're a Notre Dame or Alabama fan, Alabama proved superior. And I just want the township to know Westchester was represented at that game. Playing on the line for Alabama, number 70, our own Assistant Police Chief Dave Kelly's son, Ryan Kelly, did a great job representing Westchester as Alabama won the national championship. So I would just like to, Chief, if you can pass on my congratulations along to Dave Kelly. I know he must be extraordinarily proud of Ryan and the efforts of the team. I was hoping Notre Dame won, but very, very proud for Dave. I know he must be as well. Regarding what Mr. Morris said, I would just like to go on record. I agree with him. I think this is a case the township should never have taken. Our zoning code, in my opinion, is ambiguous as to whether it's even enforceable. It's an interpretation. It's not something that is explicitly forbidden. And I do think it sends the signals that we tend to be anti-business when it comes to certain things. And I just would like to go on record for all the reasons that Mr. Morris pointed out. I agree with him.
I just like to, thank you. I just like to say on that same point, we do have a process by which we can amend our zoning code, and we're in the middle of doing that now. As a matter of fact, you were a very strong proponent of putting together a citizens review committee to look at our zoning code. This is something that the township does every 5 to 7 years, and where we look at the code and say, well, do we need to clarify some sections or modify or correct errors, whatever. And we selected a group of all residents of this township, mostly business people, a number of business owners, asking them to review it. And I'm sure this is one of the issues that they'll be looking at. And I'm, for one, am looking forward to see what they present to us when the time comes for them to make their recommendations for changes. Until then, I think we have to enforce our code. If our code's wrong, we need to change our code. The process we're going through now is very lengthy. It takes, I think, the better part of a year, if not even more. But it's how the law prescribes us to do the changes. It requires a number of meetings and public hearings, etc. So this is one of the issues I am very much looking forward to see what our citizens committee, full of primarily business people, all of whom are residents, and I'd like to know what they think on this issue.
I'd agree with what Ms. Stoker said. In addition to that, the two chairmen are with us this evening, Chris Wannenberg and Mark Welch, two chairmen of that committee. So you guys, I know you're listening and paying attention to what's going on here. And I agree with everything what Ms. Stoker said. When it comes to enforcing the code, though, this was an interpretation. This is an act that isn't forbidden. You can't show me one spot in the code where it says a business can't do this. It's an interpretation, and as Mr. Morris pointed out, it happens with businesses every day the weather's nice. He mentioned 3 businesses. I can mention at least a dozen more that regularly do that, and yet we have selective enforcement. My word, my opinion.
Well, I want to say that currently the case is still under litigation. I don't think it is appropriate to discuss about it.
Wow, I would strongly disagree with that. As trustees, we are responsible for what goes on in the township, and I'll freely share my opinion.
Well, the fact is also, I don't believe we spent anywhere close to $100,000. I don't know where that amount came up, but we could ask Mrs. Boyko to confer with Ken to see what it is. I'm sure it's not that amount. Any person who objects to any rulings by our zoning board has the right to take them to court. And it's I think, appropriate for us to, in effect, defend our regulations. So we respond. Now, so far, the entity we're speaking of has failed to prevail in any of its legal actions. But like I say, if it's a bad code or needs clarification, I'm sure that the zoning review committee is going to come before us with recommendations. And as I say, I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. I don't want to second guess what the committee might or might not come up with.
I apologize. I do not mean to intervene in the board's deliberation and discussion. However, I think it's important to note that none of you addressed is that Westchester Township does not discriminate. There has never been or ever been a point of discrimination based on race or any other protected class. And the zoning department's actions in this were sincerely enforcing what they believe to be what the code permits. So I think it's very important to note that there is no discrimination or harassment of any particular protected class in this particular instance.
Good. Okay. All right. I will adjourn this meeting to, we have executive session tonight.
Yes.
You need a motion.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and go into executive session with legal counsel for the purpose of considering and discussing 1, personnel matters, reviewing benefits of certain collective bargaining unit employees, release of a collective bargaining unit employee, disciplinary review of employees of certain collective bargaining units. 2nd, acquisition, sale, or swap of real property. 3rd, current litigation. The board will not return. Meeting adjourned.
I'll make that motion.
Motion.
Excuse me, we need to roll call on it here.
Okay, discussion?
Well, we need a second. Would you like to second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Wong,
Yes?
Mrs. Stoker,
Yes.
Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned.